Welcome to The Explainer. This is where we take really cool online discussions and, break them down so they make sense. And today we're jumping into a question that sounds super simple, but oh man, it opens up this whole complex world tour of geography. And it all started, of course, with a Reddit deep dive. All right, let's kick things off with a question that feels like it's straight out of a trivia night. I'm going to ask you, what is the capital of South Africa? Maybe you're thinking, Pretoria, right? Well, maybe hold that thought. Yeah, it's a total trick question. If you knew that South Africa has not one, not two, but three capitals, then seriously, kudos to you. You are way ahead of the game. But what's so wild is that, as this whole online conversation revealed, that little fact is just the tip of the iceberg.
So it all kind of kicked off with this comment from a Reddit user, Mr_Feather. Just a simple little geography fact that they remembered from school, but it sparked this huge debate that showed just how many countries out there kind of banned that one capital rule, sometimes on purpose and sometimes, well, not so much.
Okay, let's start digging into this. First up, the pub quiz problem. We're going to look at why this question is so tricky in the first place. And really, it all boils down to what we even mean by capital city. If you look up the definition, it seems pretty straightforward. It's the seat of government, the administrative center. Simple, right? But the key word in there is functions. It's all about where the government actually does its work. And that little detail, well, that's where all the fun begins. So that leads to the big question, right? What happens when all those government functions get split up across different cities? Which one gets to be the capital then? To get to the bottom of this, we have to talk about a really important legal idea. And that idea is the difference between de jure and de facto. So de jure basically means by law. It's the capital that's officially written down in a country's constitution. Then you have de facto, which means in practice. That's a city that's the capital in reality, where all the government stuff is actually happening. And once you get this distinction, trust me, the whole world map of capitals starts to look a whole lot different. All right, Section 2, the official split. Let's start with the easy ones, or at least the more straightforward cases. We're talking about countries that officially, de jure, have more than one capital, right there in their laws. And of course, we got to start with South Africa. It's the classic textbook example. They've intentionally split up their government powers. So you've got the executive branch in Pretoria, the parliament doing its thing in Cape Town, and the judiciary, the Supreme Court of Appeal, in Bloemfontein. But get this, even that isn't perfectly neat. Some of the Redditors in the thread pointed out that the absolute highest court, the Constitutional Court, is now in a totally different city, Johannesburg. It just goes to show you that even these official rules can get messy and change over time. And the Reddit thread just kept going with more examples, like Bolivia, where the capital on paper is Sucre, but pretty much the entire government operates out of La Paz. Then you've got Sri Lanka, Montenegro, Eswatini. They all have these kinds of official or at least semi-official splits where power is spread around. Okay, so now we're moving on to Section 3, and this is where it gets really juicy. We're talking about the unofficial divide, the de facto splits. This is where the online debate really took off. Case in point, the Netherlands. Man, this one caused a huge stir. The law of the Constitution says Amsterdam is the capital. Full stop. But, as person after person pointed out, almost everything you think of when you think of a capital city, it's all happening in The Hague. I mean, just think about it for a second. The parliament is there. The Supreme Court is there. The royal house, where the king works, is there. All the government ministries and foreign embassies are in The Hague. So, like one user said, doesn't that basically make it the capital in practice? It's got a pretty strong claim to be the de facto capital, even if it's not the official one. And this is where we get to Section 4, when definitions blur. Because this whole thing sends us down a really fascinating rabbit hole. I mean, if we start saying a capital is just wherever the government happens to be working, ignoring the law, how far do we take that idea? And then, boom, this one comment from a user called the Cat in the Hat Things. It just nailed the whole problem perfectly. It's such a great point because it shows you what a slippery slope this de facto argument can be. So look at Germany, for example. Berlin is the official capital, no question. But a bunch of government ministries are still located in Bonn, the old capital. And then it gets even crazier. The highest courts are spread out over 5 other cities. So if you count every city that has a major top-level government building, suddenly Germany has what, 7 capitals? That can't be right, can it? All right, so Section 5,
the final answer? After going through all this, from South Africa to the Netherlands to Germany, where does that leave us? What's the final answer here? Well, there's one last really surprising twist to this whole story.
The thing is, the answer isn't a number. The answer is a definition. It turns out the original question was kind of flawed. It all comes down to whether you mean de jure, by law, or de facto, in practice. But wait, it gets even weirder.
Because what if a country has one capital, or two, or even 7? We've talked about all that. But what if a country has, well, what if it has 0 capitals?
Yep, you heard that right. It turns out there are a few countries out there that have no legally defined capital at all. In Switzerland, the constitution doesn't name one. Bern is just called the federal city. The tiny island nation of Nauru, it has no official capital city. And right now, Indonesia is in this weird limbo where a new law got rid of Jakarta as the capital, but they haven't officially named the new one yet.
Okay, so we've been deep in this geography rabbit hole. What's the big takeaway from all of this? What's the one thing you should remember?
It's pretty simple, actually. The next time you're at trivia night and someone asks for a country's capital, you can hit them with a smarter question. Do you mean by law or in practice? Because now you're not just spitting out a random fact. You're actually thinking about how countries organize themselves and where power really lies. And that really leaves us with one last big idea to chew on. You know, in a world with remote work and decentralized power, where everything is becoming less tied to one physical spot, what is a capital city even for anymore? What does it mean today, and what will it mean tomorrow? Definitely something to think about.